Good morning and welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and the man to my right, as you look on the screen, is one of the original Axon boys, Kevin Graham. How are you doing, Sam?
Good morning. I feel like I should whisper at this time of the morning, eh? It's like one of the graveyard shifts that you do on doing the radio during the night, eh? And like you get to play any record that you want. Oh, it's fantastic to be involved. I didn't think I was going to be involved today because it's my daughter's birthday. But I was feeling a bit guilty yesterday when I was watching all the great content. I'm going to need to try and get into this somehow. Eh? I'm going to need to try and contribute since I can't go down to the studio. And that's what I was missing. I was thinking that yesterday. How good would it have been to have some of the guys on the studio and that be in the studio bit, in the wee front bit, having a bit of crack.
Exactly.
Like, it would have been a great day. It would have been a fantastic day, but there we go. Circumstances meant it couldn't happen.
Well, the thing is, Kev, right? I mean, we're going to have a wee look back, not only to yesterday, but a wee bit further as to why we're here, how we got here, and what's going to happen next. So the point you made, people might realise that through a lot of kind of hard work behind the scenes, we've managed to build a studio. We do have a studio, but it's been an interesting year, as everybody knows. So we haven't utilised the studio. It's basically been me, green screens, Zoom in, dial-ins, but we've got all the facilities available for, let's say, next year, should we turn this into an annual event. And when you look at the success of it, you think to yourself, well, it definitely should be an annual event, because I think it wasn't planned. It wasn't a contrived thing. I'll give you the background of where this charity event kind of was born as well. But when you see the people coming together and you think, well, you know what, every single year, even when we're not in a year like this year, because let's hope we're never in a year like this year again, people do need that assistance. And you're looking at the charities, which we'll talk about as well. These things are always there. They've always actually been there. It's great that, for example, mental health awareness is something that we talk about a great deal more than we perhaps did before, Kevin. It's probably a generational thing. And, you know, like I was talking before I came on there about, the different eras, the different generations that we had actually on the shows yesterday, which I thought was brilliant because, I mean, to be honest, and this is no disrespect to anybody else, but what a finish, right? I mean, if we want to talk about yesterday, what a headline act. I mean, what are we? We're the Sunday openers. Now, if I think back to any festivals, I used to be a big festival goer, Kevin, mainly back in the 90s, to be honest. But I was actually at a festival when we beat Rangers 6-2. You know, I didn't see that game live. I was in Reading, I think, watching Rage Against the Machine or something when Celtic were beating Rangers 6-2, or that was certainly the headliners. But on a Sunday, I mean, what are you, feeder? You're feeder? You're opening the Sunday stage. People are getting out of their bed and washing their teeth with a tinny special brew and stuff like that. The contents of the tin, no the actual tin, that would be quite painful. You know, you're walking about looking as though you've slept a night in a skip, and then you go and watch a few bands. We are that band. We're the first band on the Sunday.
No. Right, there's been Glastonbury a couple of times. Has had surprise acts on the Sunday morning, quite big acts. Status Quo and Live Aid in 1985.
Are you just likened us to the Quo, mate? I mean, come on.
Look, they're my guilty pleasure. I love Status Quo. I went to see them. Oh, it would have been about 12 years ago now, and it was brilliant. I must admit.
Are you serious?
I'm being serious, yes.
Wow.
They didn't take themselves seriously, and everything was Spinal Tap to the max. But you knew that they were having a great laugh. Look, they have got some utter rubbish songs.
Did they do that thing? What was the guy's name? Parfitt? Was it Ray Parfitt? Was that the guy's name? Rick. Right. It shows I'm not a fan. And him and the main man with the ponytail. You know, that kind of...
Francis Rossi.
That's about, see, you know far too much. And they used to do this synchronised thing with the guitars. It was just it's the worst. Did they do that when you seen them live?
Well, basically they came on and they had a big curtain and it was white, and Rick Parfitt came on and started playing the riff to Down, Down, Deeper and Down with a spotlight on him, right? And so he kept it going for about a minute, and the crowd at the SEC, now we were probably the youngest at the SEC to actually see them, and they kept it going for about maybe a minute and a half, and all of a sudden the curtain dropped, all these fireworks and they all bounded on stage and started playing Down, Down, Deeper and Down. Absolutely fantastic.
Kev,
absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's one of these things that you would never get back, but you knew that they were taking the mickey. You knew that they were
they're playing, they are, but the thing is, right, this is like a Sunday morning confessional. This isn't the way I planned it, but now that you've mentioned the status quo there, I'm thinking about back in the day when I went to see U2 at Celtic Park, and this is hilarious because Bobby Bluebell, I've got to get the name drop in pretty quick. How long was that? It only took me 6 minutes. Bobby Bluebell was at that gig, and he was saying that he could see that Adam Clayton wasn't playing bass. And there was actually Bobby Bluebell was backstage. I was in the crowd, and there was a curtain underneath the stage at Celtic Park, and you could see, for example, the belly dancers warming up just through a wee gap in the curtain before they came up onto the stage. But what he was saying was someone else played bass that night. Adam Clayton was just standing there miming, and there was actually somebody backstage playing the bass rigged up. That's astonishing. Now, the status quo thing, I'm just astonished that you admitted it. I'm even more amazed that you went to the gig. I will freely admit I went to see Madonna in 2000, but that's not as embarrassing as a quo, mate.
It's not, the quo's no embarrassing. The quo is no embarrassing. Look, Margarita time when we're in the army now are utter rubbish. You go to the toilet when they do that, eh? But when they're doing rocking all over the world, Down, Down, Deeper and Down, Caroline, listen to their 1972 album. Was it Ball Breaker? Listen to that. It's a fantastic album. Pile Driver, sorry, it's called Pile Driver. It's a fantastic album, an absolutely fantastic album. But to bring me back into the realms of semi-coolness, I noticed Mark Jenkins made a comment saying, when you were at Reading, he went to see Oasis at Glasgow Green the night before. I was there as well. The Primal Scream played just before.
There must have been, they festivals must have married up because the Scream and Oasis were playing at Reading as well. No, wait a minute, that was V98. I get mixed up. I was at so many back in the day.
No, it was the Mirror Festival, because you had the Glasgow Green Festival. You had the Glasgow Green Festival, and Reading mirrored the Saturday in Glasgow.
Right?
On the Sunday, aye.
And Noel Gallagher still made it to the game. He was at the 6-2 game.
Yes, he was, eh?
Because Celtic fans sang roll with it at the end of the game. He was there with the scarf, etc.
We stayed, and me and my wife stayed in a hotel in Glasgow, and I actually had breakfast with the Band Asian Dub Foundation.
Oh yes, I remember them.
Who were staying in the same hotel, and yep. I think I really blared the lugs off them because they had toured quite a bit with the Primal Scream, so they knew all about Celtic, eh?
Well, I was just going to say that links us perfectly into the fact that you've got Primal Scream behind you on the wall. I remember Gillespie going on about Sat Pal Ram, Free Sat Pal Ram, which was one of the singles of Asian Dub Foundation. Just for everybody to realise that Kevin and I were on the very first Celtic State of Mind, and the conversation went a wee bit like this, and we always had to try and pull it back to Celtic. So let's do that. Let's have an absolute seamless link. So over your shoulder is Primal Scream, who you've just mentioned. Primal Scream sent us out a good luck message. They sent us out a good luck message. Now, Kevin, it's going to be much easier for you to prove this, but you've got that Screamadelica tattooed on your arm. And yeah, you do. I don't know if you've got any status quo tats, but you have got a Primal Scream tattoo on your arm. And I remember one of the strangest things I've ever seen at Celtic Park was you admitting that to Andrew Innes, who is obviously one of the main men in Primal Scream, when we were at the Lazio game with him. And after the set and goal, and after I had been jumping about with Andrew Innes out of Primal Scream, I just thought this is the most surreal moment of my life. But thankfully they didn't forget us, because they sent us out a thank you message. That leads us on to the big weekender. And obviously our festival analogies ran a wee bit longer than I would have expected. We're getting some comments coming in about that tremendous jersey. That is an original replica, isn't it? It's not a repro. Yeah, it's not a repro. It's the original 1991. It's actually got a felt badge. Furry, but it was terrible for the nip if you were running. It used to tear, you know, that runner's nip that you get when it just scrapes against like a bit of sandpaper against your nipple. That was terrible for that. I hope you've got a plaster on it. So I didn't plan on running or getting the top wet. Okay. But the thank you message, the well done support message from Primal Scream on Twitter was tremendous, but it was one of several, and we still do have some brilliant videos. But yesterday I put one out, and it was Wyn Evans from the Go Compare adverts, How random is that?
That's unreal.
See when that dropped into my WhatsApp, Kevin, and he's calling me Dykesy in a Welsh accent. I just thought,
I know he's some lad. He's a big Spurs fan. He's a Tottenham fan, as far as I'm aware. But it's just when he starts singing, and you just know that it's like he done the go compare thing at the start, and like it's this unbelievable that the amount of people that have got involved and sent you messages. And I mean, I must admit, I ken that you, Kelly and Kelvin done a great shift there yesterday because I wished I was doing helping yous, but unfortunately, Nicola says that's not allowed. But you've done a great job getting all these podcasts together and organising all this. And it's always been something that you've wanted to do, even right from the start. You've always said this is something, and now you've done it, and you should be really, really proud of yourself, mate. Really, really proud of yourself.
The thing is, okay, it's anybody can have a concept. Anybody can have a concept, and it's all about the people involved being able to put all the wee bits of the jigsaw in place. And like you say, Kelly and Kelvin working away behind the scenes, all the guys and girls who are involved in a Celtic State of Mind, all the shows, because we had a discussion. I mean, I've got to say, I didn't realise just how many Celtic podcasts there were until I started writing a kind of wish list. And then I went through and I thought, wow, some of these guys aren't on Twitter, so I wasn't aware of them. Looking through Spotify, looking through iTunes. So it's quite incredible that you're able to get 20 shows together. And I've got to thank every single show. Some people might think, and I know there was a few mentions in some of the shows yesterday, that there's this great rivalry between Celtic podcasts. I mean, I've never really felt that, Kev, to be honest with you. I know that it does exist in the blogosphere where there's certain people who don't like other people and all that nonsense. But I'm all about the Celtic, and I'm all about what we were doing this weekend was charity, so everybody can get pulled together, and like in a Live Aid style, because I did see your Bob Geldof meme yesterday going out on Twitter. But some of the shows were absolutely superb. So the very first question I'm going to ask you, now that we've got the status quo chat out our system, 13 minutes into the show, Kev, is what was your highlights from yesterday, the content from yesterday?
First up, the St Roch's guys. That's an amazing thing they do with that community club. That's a club. It's at the heart of the Garden Gad.
It's a real community club, Kev, because you get a lot of clubs saying we're a community club, but when you see what the Rock do, it's a different level, isn't it?
It's a different level, and listening to the guys' stories that go to Rock Talk on a Sunday morning, there's a lot of things, and I've noticed since we've started, I mean, we're quite open about mental health and that subject on this podcast. And I've actually noticed since we've started talking about it, there's guys in the comments open up and saying they've had problems with this, they've had problems with that. They feel it's a safe space to actually open up and say stuff. And right, there's some numpties in there, we know there is, and we'll come to that later on. But there's some really, really good people in there as well. And there's some... And it's just humbling when you. I mean, we've got guys now who we will actually count as friends on social media. Mm-hmm. Never met the guys, but will actually speak to us as if we knew them for years and years.
You look at Mark, who comments on YouTube regularly, and he's on our Twitter page, and it's people that we haven't met yet that hopefully in the next year will be in the studio and we'll be talking to them, because these people bring so much to the actual the greater good of the show. By contributing, as you say, mental health, Kevin, you know, I'll tell you what, if anybody out there has never suffered from it or known somebody who's suffered from it, then they can thank their lucky stars, because it's something that no one is immune to, you know, having an issue with mental. No one is immune to this. And it could just be the flip of a coin, a couple of circumstances in your life not going the way you planned, and then, you know, boom, you can wake up one day, you don't even understand what's happened. I've lost a couple of friends but through suicide, and you think about that, and you always think, well, you know what, tomorrow's another day, it's a moment in time, and you just wish that they had phoned you or texted you or whatever. And then people think that I think sometimes they've got the blinkers on, Kev, and they don't even consider the fact that they could reach out to you and just give you a phone, you know what I mean, any time of the day or night.
And I know some people, it's the most difficult thing to talk. I'm talking for experience here. I've had a really, really tough year this year. And so tough, in fact, Celtic being rubbish for the last 8 weeks is a way down on my list of things that have made me unhappy this year. That Celtic have actually pulled me through. Doesn't matter how bad that they've been. It's Celtic are bigger in results for me. It's meeting guys like yourself and the other guys involved in Axom, having can I call them virtual friends? For the want of a better phrase, I'll call them virtual friends, but that's maybe a bit weird. But I understand what people go through and understand how hard it is for people to talk. But once you talk, even if that person just listens, that person's not got all the answers. That person's not got all the answers. Even me, who's had experience with it, I haven't got the answers when somebody speaks to me about it. But it's just been there and just listening, And the guys for St Roch's, that's a great and a really, really hard area of Glasgow where male masculinity and toxic masculinity can really make people like go into their shells and not want to admit that they're struggling. It's a really, really great thing that they do. And obviously we're open at any point as well. If somebody needs to speak to us, we'll speak to us. I mean, this has been real, this whole thing, the Axon stuff, especially this year, has been a great help to me. And I don't think I realised how big a help it was till I actually started thinking about it over the last month or so. It's been real good. I'm actually just feeling like I'm coming out the other side of what I've been through this year. And I've just noticed a kind of change in my energy levels and my focus in that. So even though I thought I was back to normal maybe about 3-4 months ago, I only believe it is really now that I'm there. But I might still not be there. It's never going to go away. I know it's never not going to go away. But it's just the wee things I need to learn to handle it. I mean, for me to do this and what I do with the poetry and the readings and all of that, I wouldn't have been able to do that 4 or 5 years ago. And I know that.
But the great thing about that, Kevin, is you see people in their struggle and a lot of the time what they're doing, and I know this because I know you, what they do in their own time and in their free time and their day-to-day life is absolutely admirable. And a lot of people don't see that side of it. They think you're wallowing in your own self-pity and stuff like that if you suffer from depression or stress or anxiety. And that's not the case, because I know that what you contribute to society is incredible. I know that on a day-to-day basis. But I was smiling there because you were talking about your poetry and doing stuff live. And again, that encapsulates everything that we've done with a Celtic State of Mind. When I got a knock at the door from a guy wearing a pair of shorts, they were the 3/4 length. They weren't like the Paul McStay Mexico 86 ones. The one that's shiny shorts. And a Mick Head t-shirt, bit of a cardigan. I think you had a combat kind of cap on. And we were to talk about the concept of doing a Celtic podcast, but we didn't speak about Celtic for about an hour before we even switched on a dictaphone. And I kind of thought, well, you know what? This is going to work. And from that kitchen table podcast, which actually, when you listen back to it now, it's a bit ramshackle, but we thought we were like producing something that was Oscar winning at the time. We've kind of, tried to push it. And that's why yesterday was great, because, I mean, some of the production, some of the content yesterday was really, really top class. I mean, you look at the Cynic, sending me intro and outro videos and everything for publishing on the show and everything was superb. I thought it was presented tremendously by everybody involved. And what we need to get away from, because I was advised yesterday, I was on the buttons all day yesterday, Kevin, so that's why my eyes are maybe looking like piss holes in the snow at the moment. But I was advised at some point that the comments, because at the moment, although I can see the comments coming in, you're not always in and about the comments, moderating them. You need a separate moderator. So we're always looking to improve, and that will happen today with regards to moderation. But there was a lot of comments, very disappointing comments yesterday, because people will notice on a Celtic State of Mind that we're always trying to expand our views, the members of the team. And last week, believe it or not, last week, Kevin, and you know what I'm going to say, we got criticised for introducing some females onto a Celtic State of Mind show. Now, I find that totally absurd, totally unacceptable. But we were criticised on YouTube, weren't we? And
yes, aye.
People won't know this, but we spoke to someone about, I don't know now, 3-4 months ago, to try and get them on the show as a presenter. Now, this was someone who was going to bring a lot to the table in terms of having the production experience, having the presentation. I wouldn't say who it is, but they have worked with what you would maybe describe as an elite football club. And we were getting them onto a Celtic State of Mind to try and add that bit of class. It just so happens that she was female. We weren't doing it because she was female. It just so happens that she was. Because this is another thing. Oh, those comments were great. And it's done in such a way, it's almost patronising. Why don't you say that my comments were great? Maybe they weren't great. Because I'm a bloke. You know, you can't differentiate and say, well, I was really impressed with that. Why would you be more impressed with someone's comments just because they're female? And what I noticed during the process of speaking to this girl was, she says to me that the environment we're operating in is so toxic that she wouldn't want to enter it. And I totally understand that. It was so toxic that she wouldn't want to enter it because basically you're opening yourself up to the social media cretins, because there's so many of them out there. Kev, you know some of the stuff that's happened to me in the last few weeks. I won't labour the fact with regards to social media stuff, because it enters the realms of this isn't virtual, because it becomes real life. And this person who would have been brilliant for a Celtic State of Mind said that she simply wasn't prepared to do it. Yesterday there were comments during the Cynic show which were completely unacceptable, misogynistic. You know, it went beyond patronising. It was completely unacceptable. And I need to apologise, actually, for everybody involved, because there's a responsibility to monitor all the comments coming in. I think yesterday, with how busy it was in producing 12 shows, that's something maybe I dropped the ball with a wee bit, Kev. But it is unacceptable. And these are people, which is even worse, a lot of them are Celtic fans. So please heed the warning. Do not get involved in that kind of chat. It's totally wrong. The people who we have introduced in the last few weeks, the presenters, they're here to stay. You know, they're brilliant. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter. It's all about the views. I mean, Natasha, Amy, Laura, who's going to join us for the game later on today. One of the best presenters yesterday for me was Erin Boyle for the Kano. So hopefully Erin can do something for us in the future as well. Aye, totally unacceptable, but I just had to put that out there, Kev, and a big apology to all the great people at the Cynic, because they were targeted as a result of people's small-mindedness.
I know, it's terrible. I think I can't speak for these people, and I just hope these people are embarrassed by themselves. I'm not embarrassed for them. I just pity them. I mean, how would they like it if somebody was calling their sister, their mother, their daughter, what they were actually saying? That's the way that they've got to. That's the way that you've got to look at everything. Now, we've always wanted to expand the team here because we're doing more and more content. Then, I mean, I still think the only reason that I'm still here is because I chapped your door that day and ended up sitting in your kitchen. I'm probably the worst pundit on the place, but I'm only hanging about because I'm Adam Clayton. There's somebody behind me just ready to come in and play my bass part.
Is somebody feeding you all the analogies, Kev? Somebody writing your jokes for you, mate?
No. Hopefully, no. Either that, they should get sacked. I thought, look, we see it all the time, and there's even the banter between certain commenters in the chat room on a daily basis can sometimes cross the line, and they've got to just keep it Celtic. I mean, some of the conversations yesterday were brilliant. Some of them were absolutely horrendous. Some of them were like the conversation about the sweeties. That was funny as anything. Then we had a discussion about the NFL as well going on at the time. The chat room is a place where people feel safe. As I said earlier on, there's people come in and tell us that they're suffering from gambling addictions, mental health and that. They don't want to see idiots coming on trying to be the big man with their toxic masculinity and try to look at commenting on girls' looks and stuff like that. Look, I'm big enough to actually read and ugly enough to actually take abuse about me wearing a hat and one of the worst Celtic tops ever. But when you're doing it to a female, it's completely different. It is completely different. Girls go to the football just as much as guys.
Mm-hmm.
They've got an opinion the same as me, same as you, same as anybody else. Who's been on a Celtic State of Mind since the start. I was really disappointed that the cynics seem to be targeted, and I would like to. I would like to apologise as well. But if you're going to comment, just make sure you're commenting for the right reasons. You're adding to the show, because you do add to the show.
100%.
You do add to the show.
Here's an example, Kev, right? Ken Walsh. Now, Ken, obviously, I don't think he would have made the 8 o'clock because he was celebrating last night.
He was a bit drunk, eh?
He'll not make this one, but hopefully he can watch back. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Ken at Malone's before a game, and he's followed us. He follows us, religiously almost. And, even just a small thing like Ken giving Tony Curran a shout out, what does that do for a Celtic State of Mind? Well, I then start speaking to Tony via DM. Tony gives us a well-wishing video, and then he throws in not only his own donation, by the way, into the pot, but 4 items, bespoke items that Martin Compson then starts bidding on and all this kind of stuff. So from one guy that we know, Ken, virtually, and I've been lucky enough to meet him in Glasgow as well, this is how people can add to the show and bring people together. Now, Jim Orr, who is our Friday pundit on a Celtic State of Mind, brought up an absolutely brilliant few points, as he normally does, actually, and we're talking about values, club values, communities. And I'm not preaching, by the way, because yesterday was absolutely astronomical in terms of what I expected. My expectations were blown out the water, as I think everybody else's were. So it's not a greeting meeting today, Kev. It's just like, not even laying down the ground. It was just a gentle reminder to everybody that we do have that, the community spirit. We do have the values, and that's why we're here. I mean, look at the 4 charities that will be benefiting. And the reason I've kept IH Decorating up so long is I want to thank everybody that sponsored the show. And IH Decorating were one of the sponsors yesterday, as was Stephen Forbes, who wanted to raise awareness for Rock Talk as well. So thank you to everybody who sponsored. Thank you to everybody who donated items and actually threw some money into the pot, which is ever expanding, Kevin. I mean, by the time we closed down yesterday, I say closed down, by the time I went for a kip, we were sitting combined at over £17,000. Now, that was the fundraising page, which is still open, the auction, which is still open, and a couple of payments that have come in, cash, cheque, etc., that are still to be banked and transferred into the GoFundMe page, which will happen obviously first thing next week. So we're over £17,000, which was just unbelievable. Across the bottom of the page are the names of the 4 charities that we are hoping to support. So we're looking at food banks, and as Bernie Slavin said in one of his videos during the week, we shouldn't even have food banks in this country. They've now become the norm, which is shocking. Food Facts Friends are going to help us out with that, and you'll all see them during the weekend. Those suffering from mental health, well, you've seen Stevie in yesterday, Stevie Mullen, absolute brilliant guy, shining example. Vulnerable kids with Children First, and the homeless for Help the Homeless. Vulnerable kids, Kev, the thing that saddens me, and I know you've done a lot of work yourself on this, is just that they don't have the choice. It's not their bad decisions that have got them into the situation. And you just want to, you wish you could just pick every single one of them up and give them a big cuddle and help every single one of them. And thankfully, there's organisations that do exactly that, but they're charitable and they need money and they need people funding them. And that's what we're hopefully going to be doing today. Homelessness. I used to work in George Street in Edinburgh, and my daily commute ended with a walk from either the bus or the train down George Street into my work, into a beautiful plush building, which was worth several £1 million probably, Kevin, you know what I mean? And what you got on that walk down George Street, one of the trendiest streets with all the trendy bars and all the big expensive shops, was the dichotomy of society that we live in today. So you had the highest echelons, if someone wants to pick me up on the pronunciation of echelons, of all these vast, wealthy businessmen who have bought up all the brilliant buildings in George Street. But then you look down and there's people who have nothing. They're sleeping on the pavement, and they're sleeping at vents that might actually give them a heat, and you look up at what the vent is, and it's a big Masonic building in George Street. and you're looking at that, and you're looking at the opulence of that, and then you're looking at the person on the street, and you think to yourself, every day on my way to work, on my way back to the bus or the train, I'm probably walking past 10 people a day, Kev. And you think, even if I was to give every one of them a fiver, I'd be working to fund giving somebody just a bite to eat. So there must be a different way of doing it. And then straight away, that's where the idea grows. Let's try and help the homeless. Let's try and do something. So when you then look at the fact that from that kitchen table, we managed to very, very gradually build a platform, build an audience, then you say, how can we put this to good use? How can we do something? And this came to light three weeks ago. And you know what? It happened on the day, somebody can tell me the date, that Celtic released their Christmas video. That's when this concept was born. And the thing with regards to the Christmas video, I'm not knocking the club, Kev. I'm not knocking the club, right? Because I know there's several, and it's not because I know that there's several members of the club staff do watch the show. I'm not knocking the club because they're a corporate entity, and the Christmas video is an annual event. But when I watched it, I did feel that I asked myself, what's the message? What's the message here on this video? That's what I was watching it, and I asked myself, and I thought maybe we should do our own Christmas video. By the way, that's something for next year. But then I thought, no, let's send out a different message. And this is where the Quadruple Treble charity weekender was born. This will happen next year. It might happen in a different way. We might have people out there on the streets doing stuff that we can actually physically show this is the good that's being done. People on the street doing stuff, Kevin. Hopefully we can do all that next year. But it was the message or lack of that I felt, correct me if I'm wrong, I felt there was a lack of a real message of the club's so-called values when I seen that video. And that's what started off this idea to do the Quadruple Treble charity weekender.
There is the club's charitable arm, the foundation, do a lot of good work, but the Christmas videos seem to have become a monster in its own right. It's become a very plushly produced video, and it's fantastic. But as you say, the supporters club, there's supporters clubs up and down the country who still represent Celtic's values in their local areas. It always annoys me when people say to Celtic fans, support your local team, because there was Irish immigrants came to all parts of Scotland in the late 1800s. They settled all the way up to the Highlands, all the way down to the borders. And Celtic were founded for those people. They weren't just founded for Glasgow people. They weren't just founded for the people in the East End. They were founded to help the people in the East End, but the Irish immigrants who were all over Scotland were also made to feel part of that as well, because it was their club. It was founded by their people. And this is why you've got supporters clubs all over Scotland. And you've got these supporters clubs. My supporters club, the Tommy Gemmell CSC Dunblane. Dunblane is seen as this sort of affluent area just outside Stirling. They've got one of the biggest food banks. Stirling and Dunblane have got one of the biggest food banks in Central Region, and that's Dunblane. There's such a thing as food working poverty. I've seen it in my day job. I see working poverty all the time. The fact that during this, the Celtic support have always been willing to step up, and I think over this lockdown period when we didn't have Celtic, and you started doing the daily podcasts, and I've stopped going on the supporters bus because I can't go anywhere on a supporters bus, But our supporters bus raised £500 for the local food bank just via a WhatsApp message, and we set up a GoFundMe page. Just because that's what we do. We actually give back to the local community. So this is just like a larger scale. This is like a big, massive Celtic supporters club. And we're going to help the people who, there'll be guys in our chat that probably use food banks. There's guys in our chat and girls in our chat, that have got mental health problems. There'll be guys in the chat who'll help underprivileged kids as well.
Exactly.
So
just picking up on Charles's point, I don't want you to misinterpret what I just said.
No, not at all.
This was nothing to do with what the club does in terms of the charitable processes through the foundation, of which I'm well aware. This was to do with the disconnect that watching that Celtic Christmas video actually highlighted to myself. And that disconnect goes deeper than just trying to sell you merchandise while people are struggling. The disconnect goes down to the fact that I know for a fact that the Former Players Association exists, but how many former players were contacted this year during a pandemic, where actually I got word just 2 days ago that one of those former players died at the age of 73. And I don't even know if it was something that was mentioned on the Celtic social pages, but it's someone who spent a great deal of time with me when I was writing my first book. And I don't feel that, beyond the charitable element of setting up a foundation, which is absolutely tremendous, and I would never criticise that, I don't feel connected to the club. I don't feel that the club as an entity are speaking to me as a human being in society. And I don't think that they're doing enough for ex-players who are struggling, who might be relying on some of these charities that are on the ticker tape underneath this page. And that was the reason that, having watched that Christmas video, that I decided to set this up. So that was nothing to do, it's not unfair, it's nothing to do with what the club does in terms of its charitable foundation, absolutely nothing. And what we're doing has nothing to do with that. This was sparked off by a video that said to me, buy merchandise this Christmas. It wasn't a video that said, we are all in this together, even though those words were uttered. And that is what prompted us to set up the Charity Weekender. So don't get me wrong, Charles, and I appreciate your comment. It wasn't unfair, because we are not talking about the Celtic Foundation here. This is completely different. This is a club as a corporate identity, and a disconnect that a lot of people feel with the true values of that club. Because when someone like Ian Bankier comes into an AGM and starts talking about Celtic values, that for me is lip service, and I don't think for a second that he can tell Celtic fans about values. So the disconnect that has been felt by me and others is vast, it's huge. So yeah, they do the foundation, and the foundation charitable arm of the club is outstanding, and I've supported it and will continue to do that. This isn't about that. This is about the club as an entity.
It is about the club. I've seen firsthand what the foundation do. I've been to a couple of events with the foundation, and what they can do, because they get, is beyond our reach. It's beyond our reach of doing this. Well, what they can do, how they reach out with work programmes, stuff like that, is beyond what we can do. That is beyond what we can do. But we can actually get the rank and file together and do something like this. Do something. You see it on the comments many a time, folk going, where can I send you money because we're enjoying all your content? Well, just send it to us and we'll send it to charity. Send it to us this weekend. And I've noticed that in the GoFundMe page quite a bit. There's people going, I've been listening to you for months. Here's £20-30 because you actually deserve it. The amount of time that I've spent listening to you for free content. You're talking about the disconnect with the club. I know for a fact that the club met the free supporters groups this week. And basically it was, come in. We take your concerns. Didn't let the door hit you on the way out. That is basically what happened in the free meetings. Well, so that showed that's exactly where you're coming from, Paul.
Exactly,
that is exactly where you're coming from, and so that's happened.
What did it do? What did it do for the ex-players, Kev? What did it do for the ex-players? Nothing. The Former Players Association wasn't set up by the club. And again, it's not going to turn into a greeting meeting, but there's so much that can be done better. The foundation is fantastic. Absolute gold medal, platinum standard, what they do with the foundation. But as a club, there's loads and loads wrong. I know ex-players who are suffering from addiction. Club's never been in touch with them. I know ex-players who lose their wife. The club doesn't, they're not represented at the funerals. These are things that, there's certain people at the club who are worth their weight in gold, Kevin. We've mentioned JP Taylor as being one of them. Absolutely. But as a club, it needs to do better. It definitely needs to do better. And there's a huge disconnect. And what I have found over the last 24 hours is that when the Celtic fans come together, we are an unstoppable force. And that was shown yesterday. And again, yeah, we've had a wee dig at a few of the comments that were getting made at some of the presenters and that yesterday. But when we come together, that's a powerful force. That's an army, and we can do a lot of good. And I just think that it needs to be embraced. And like you say there, the associations, was it a tick box exercise talking to them because they're getting a lot of criticism for that?
It seemed that way. It seemed to be on the hoof. For what I can kind of gather, what's happened is the trust got given, says publicly that they had a meeting. That they had a meeting arranged after the protest last week, and the other two orgs phone says, "Oh, what about us? You're not going to get us in to speak as well." So that's what seems to have happened this week, and what seems to have come out of it. All three organisations are saying the exact same. It was the same spin, it was the same talk, it was the same, as I says. Came in and said, we understand your concerns. We're doing everything we can. Have a cup of tea and just don't let the door hit you on the way out. Happy Christmas.
Now, Kev,
that's where it is. And now, what you're actually saying there is an awful lot good people work for Celtic Football Club. We know a hell of a lot of them. But for me, at times, their hands are tied because of the corporate entity that they work for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is a lot of good people who try to do a lot of good things at Celtic Football Club, but are basically stopped going that extra mile because of the corporate entity. No,
you're right. And again, I don't want to turn this into a greeting meeting because it's all about positivity. And I was a wee bit, I was doing something else while you were talking, Kevin, but I was listening because I can do that. I was just inviting the next show, and it's the Celtic Daz. It's the Celtic Daz, of which you and I think, are part of that unique group of people, the Celtic Daz.
I'm a proud member. I'm proud to be a Celtic Daz. I've reclaimed it. As it was meant to be a slagging for us older guys, but I've reclaimed it.
It was, I mean, no, well, you can't sit there and pull off that away top and not be a Celtic Daz, mate, let's be honest. I remember I bought that jersey myself. I don't know where it is, but, I'm sorry, it's not improved with age. For me, it's not improved with age. There are some of these Celtic jerseys that have, but unfortunately, that's not one of them.
I just need to plug in my laptop.
That's all right, Kev. We didn't want to lose you, mate. But while we're doing that, I do want to have a look back to what happened yesterday in relation to some of the shows that we were presented with. And we started off with Celtic Crack, who, they had an amazing setup in Belfast. And obviously they were delighted to be on the show. They opened up the weekend. That was followed on by St. Roch's. And then Celtic Underground. Now, Celtic Underground, I think, was the very first podcast I was ever on, Kevin, way back when I was talking about my book. Celtic A to Z, they came into the studio. That's the first time I met they guys. They were excellent, talking about a wee bit of the history of the Scottish Cup. And then Electronic Tim's, which I thought was superb. Some of the old heads within the podcast world. Again, Kevin, the Electronic Tim's, it was great that one of the members was broadcasting from his works van. Then we had the Cynic, and I thought the Cynic were brilliant. I mean, in terms of professionalism, it was at such a high standard. As I say, though, very, very well prepared, sending me the intros and the outros as well. Wait a minute, Gary Miller, that's a good question. Are you going to auction off your wig? Well, I have a whole collection, Gary. So this is my Scottish Cup final wig. And yes, I might do that. Let's see where we are at the end of the auction as well. So the Cynic I thought were brilliant, and I'll definitely be tuning in again. The Huddle Breakdown, completely different subject altogether, looking at the stats and the analysis and the numbers. Obviously, Alan Morrison's somebody who's appeared several times in a Celtic State of Mind. I find all that fascinating, talking about today's game from a completely different perspective. And I always do find it fascinating, Kev, because when you and I talk about a game, I take things from what you say and you might ignore what I say. But when I talk to someone like Alan Morrison, and it gives you a completely different take on it. And then I speak to some of the coaches who are involved in other shows on A State of Mind, and they tell you something that you don't actually appreciate as well. So that was excellent. Pod 67, hopefully anyone who isn't aware of some of these podcasts are checking them out and following them on Twitter as well. I really enjoyed the Pod 67 input as well. And then we had the Ball Boys. The Ball Boys, you know, it was just like, I was watching that thinking to myself, this is like what I would expect a Zoom call between the two members in Mogwai, you know, just sitting there eating a bag of crisps, just chewing the fat. Oh, remember, we need to talk about Celtic. Oh, aye, let's talk a wee bit about Celtic. So the Ball Boys were very entertaining, but they were coming out of retirement.
It was like an episode of Cheech and Chong. Both of them. At one point, I felt like giving one of them Stevie Mullen's number. It was like the Secret Diary of Tinder. I mean, there should be a dating app for Celtic fans called Tinder. Eh?
Maybe there is.
That's got to get invented, but that was just bizarre. It was utterly bizarre. And the boys were they got relaxed. I mean, the guy's sitting there wearing his laddie's headset. His laddie's gaming headset.
What was that clicking?
I think it was...
I thought it was a cockroach.
I think it was a loose wire in the guy's microphone. That's what I thought it was. But they two were brilliant. I mean, you're either going to love the guys or you're either going to love the guys and want to go for a pint with them, or you didn't want to go anywhere near them. That type of boys, but they were fantastic. Then you had the 4 Tims in a pod, or 3 Tims in a jumper, as have been rechristened. They were fantastic as well. It was like a virtual through the keyhole, though. You got to see folks sees you're going, oh, that's nice wallpaper. That's no nice wallpaper. It was great. And yes, a Christmas decoration is trying to attack me, so that's why my arm is up here now.
Just nonchalantly leaning against the windowsill. The Celtic End. Now, people will probably recognise Stevie Ray's had a couple of podcasts over the years and certainly appeared on many others. But I love the chat on the Celtic End as well, and hopefully that's a pod that will continue. And by the way, Stevie, you should do more visual stuff, man. I mean, a lot of the people were saying, this is the first time we shouldn't really do it on YouTube. Absolutely, get on YouTube, man, because for me, it's definitely a better way of growing your audience.
See, what I would say, somebody like the Ball Boys would work as a late night chat with them engaging with the comments.
Like maybe an overnight thing. 2 in the morning. Definitely.
That would work for them, definitely.
Then the Kano Foundation. Some of the videos, Kev, I think that's the wee one that's getting up. Some of the videos were brilliant. Absolutely superb. But again, Erin was so well organised. She had all the videos sent over to me in advance so that they could be uploaded onto StreamYard, etc. And then the closing act of the night. What's the best closing act you've ever seen at a festival, Kev?
The Roses were good at Tea in the Park, but I don't think they were absolutely great because I think it was just because I wanted to see them again. I'm not going to say the closing act. The best festival set I can remember was the Primal Scream doing Exterminator just before we beat Rangers 6-2. They actually blew Oasis off the stage straight after it, but that was when the Primal Scream were the ultimate live band.
Manny on the Beds.
Manny on the Beds, Kevin Shields on the other guitar. They just came on and absolutely blew everybody away. Who else did? I remember one Saturday afternoon, maybe no headliners, Saturday afternoon, where I managed to see the Low Fidelity All Stars, Spiritualised, and Fatboy Slim at Tea in the Park. That was a decent afternoon. That was a very good afternoon.
See the thing with looking at headliners, you mentioned something there, and it goes back to our opening discussion, actually, for anyone who was up at 8 o'clock watching us. And it went back to that Primal Scream thing where they blew Oasis off the stage, but they'd done exactly the same down in Reading, because Oasis were headlining, Primal Scream were the second last bill on the act on the bill, rather. And they completely blew Oasis off the stage down in Reading as well. But I think Oasis were on their way down, whereas Primal Scream were peaking. Certainly as a live band, Primal Scream were peaking at that stage. So the reason I've asked that, I mean, this is us going down a tangent again. The reason I asked it was yesterday we finished with 4 Tims in the pod. Let's talk about that show.
Oh, what a fantastic show. I mean, doing this, sometimes you don't get much time to listen to other Celtic pods, and it's not because you didn't want to, it's just because you just haven't got the time. But they were fantastic. The 4 Tims guys were fantastic. There was a lot of them. A lot of them were fantastic. A lot of them that I've never heard of. What were fun. I really did think when you were saying there's the names of these guys involved that you were making up half of them. I thought you were going to tell us we're going to get face masks made and we're going to do 12 hours ourselves, and we're just going to kid on with different folk. But that was really good, and I'm really looking forward to today to see what the lads come up with today.
Well, absolutely. I thought the 4 Tims were tremendous. Obviously, they've appeared on a Celtic State of Mind before. They're funny, but actually, when you get beyond the humour, a lot of their content, I think, is spot on. A lot of the comments are spot on as well. But obviously, that poor lad with his jersey got absolutely ripped to shreds, and Anthony was only happy with that because people were leaving him with his hair. He brought that up, then he targeted him. But it was all taken in good humour, and I thought they were a great act to finish off day one. We've opened day two, Kevin. There was one occasion yesterday where we almost didn't get a show on, because we're doing all that in the background while the previous show's in, and I almost had to jump in. There was another couple of occasions where a couple of videos went down, cameras went down, and I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs behind the scenes, and I noticed, oh well, I shouldn't be part of that stream. So apologies for any of the technical issues, but obviously we hopefully will be far better today. So for the actual game then, Kevin, let's have a quick one about the game, because I do know that Celtic Da are waiting in the wings, and they're drinking from some kind of receptacle. I don't know if they've started on the bevy, or if it's a nice wee cup of coffee or chai tea or a latte, but we'll soon see. And we'll soon see if they can set the tone for the day. Let's have a wee chat about the game though, because I mean, we've spoken about it for the last week, talking about, we've been bogged down actually about the team lineup. No one knows what it's going to be. Someone else had the theory that, the fact that Lennon made the comments that he did means that everybody is on their toes. Everybody is alert to what's going to happen today. Maybe the new guys that have come in and been lauded, and rightly so, have basically been put in their place and said, listen, you're not guaranteed a start on Sunday. And the old guard who may be thinking that they're out the picture a wee bit, maybe tuning out a wee bit, they've basically been told you will be in. So the whole group are maybe more alert than they would be. They'll know what the team line is, Kevin. I think that Neil Lennon tells them the team the night before the game. Any last minute changes in your mind as to how this is going to go today?
When I got up, I was thinking about this yesterday, and when I remember Neil's first time at Celtic as well, he lost a couple of big games at Hampden when Celtic just didn't turn up. This team's in a different place mentally. Well, you would have said they were in a different place mentally if we hadn't had the last 8 weeks. I thought Neil was indulging in a bit of mind games when last Sunday, when he mentioned Old Guard coming back in. The only person I expect to come back in today from the game last week would be Scott Brown. When you're talking about the Old Guard, I actually expect Scott Brown to come in, and I do believe that he'll start with Greg Taylor and not Laxalt. Something gives me that. I think Taylor done what Neil Lennon wanted him to do last week, and Laxalt's kind of went off the boil a bit. So I think you'll see Hazard, Ayer at right back, Duffy, Julien, Greg Taylor. You'll see Brown, McGregor. Actually, Ryan Christie will play on the right-hand side, David Turnbull, Moy on the left-hand side, and Eddie up front. I think that'll be the team that he'll go for. I really want us to get an early goal. I think if we get an early goal, then it'll be like the Aberdeen semi-final. If we score early enough, then for me it's game over. If we score early enough. Because if we score early enough, it'll settle our nerves. And then we can just go into playing what is our natural game. Well, what should be our natural game. If we're getting to 60, 70 minutes, Larkin, it's nothing each like it has been over the last couple of weeks than it is really what you would call squeaky bum time, because Hearts have got Premier League experience there. They are a Premier League side, all but in league.
That reminds me, remember the section in Not the View, it was called Johnson Balls, remember? And Derek Johnson's quotes would appear as complete contradictions. I'm entering that one into the realms of Johnson Balls, Kev. Brilliant.
I couldn't think any other way to say that. They're a Premier League side and anything but their league. They'll have a bigger budget than a lot of the teams in the Premier League.
Yes.
When you look at the players that they've got there, they've got Gordon, they've got Naismith, they've got Halliday, they've got the guy Stephen Kingsley, who shouldn't be playing at the level that he's actually playing at.
Big wages. He's on big wages, Kev. As is Craig Gordon, you know.
So you've got Gordon, who maybe have something to prove, but look, Craig Gordon, when he played against Hearts, when he played for Hearts against us, was always likely to throw one into the back of the net. Mm-hmm. If you remember the number of howlers that he made. I want an early goal. If we get an early goal, then it will settle me right down. And I'm just hoping at the back of 4 the night, we're going to be celebrating something that's absolutely unbelievable. And it's going to be unbelievable.
I know, I mean, celebrations back in the day, Kevin, might have been different for you and I, but in our Celtic Daz state, we certainly won't be partying in the house or elsewhere. The Celtic Daz are coming in very, very shortly to join us, but not join us, to take over. They're taking over. But when we look back on the other trebles, and that's astonishing even to be talking about a quadruple treble. How many cup finals were we at together? 1, I think. Was it the Motherwell game?
1.
Aye, Motherwell.
When you're talking about trebles, in the last 3 weeks, you've actually seen how it's really difficult to do trebles. Yeah. Ross County are absolutely terrible. Sacked their manager yesterday.
You know what? I've seen that in the comments. I've not even had a time to look at it.
So they beat us comfortably at Celtic Park.
Yep.
And you look at the other night there, a Rangers team who had a free hit at their first trophy completely went out. So to go what we are 36 games unbeaten in cup ties is an utterly phenomenal record. So hopefully we can bookend it today, get the glorious trophy home, and then we look forward to the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
Take this season head on now.
Well, we do, because obviously there's unfinished business in the league, and I think there's been a couple of signs, the St Mirren game being one of them, but also the events yesterday. I even mentioned it at Tannadice. I see a few wee things that the Rangers fans will be looking at that as championship winning form, you know, winning ugly and winning when the chips are down, etc. That's fine. But I've seen a few weaknesses in there, and hopefully that will materialise and drop points. Now, picking up on what the DJ of choice said, and apologies for your time out yesterday. It wasn't me. I think I was making a cup of tea at that time and somebody else did it. Just to maybe check the function of it. So apologies for that. Have you got a live game reaction show? We will be live all the way through the show, which is something we tried a few times, which didn't work in the respect of the Celtic stream wasn't live. And Kevin was texting me that Ferencváros scored before we actually seen it. But today it's on the BBC, so we will have live footage and we will be looking at the game live, and we'll be dialing a few interesting guests in, Kevin, during that as well. Some of the Axom team, some people who have never appeared on Axom. Let's see how that goes. We've got to take a chance here and there. But the Celtic Daz are waiting in the wings to come on. Just one final mention to the charities that we are supporting today for 12 hours, yesterday for 12 hours. The Axom Quadruple Treble Charity Weekend will be supporting Rock Talk, Food Facts, Friends, Food Bank, Children First, and Help for the Homeless. The donation page has over £14,800 in it. We also have a live auction on eBay, which is making several £1,000s, and we've had a few other pledges. So we're well over the 17 grand mark, Kevin. In terms of a target, I'd love to break the £20,000 mark, which would be life-changing for so many people. But anything anyone can do in that respect will be much appreciated. Kevin Graham, I think you have probably appeared on more episodes of Celtic State of Mind than anyone else apart from myself. And it's always a pleasure to hear from you. I know you have family matters to deal with today, so this will probably be the last that we see of you today. But if you do fancy, after the game, coming in to celebrate or vent, regardless of how it goes, you're always welcome. Let me know and I'll dial you in. I'm going to play a very short video and then you will be faced with the select as. Thank you so much, Kevin Graham, for joining us on a Celtic State of Mind.